What up, Vibers? It's your boy Kai. Welcome to another episode of the Vibe with Kai podcast. Today, we have an incredible guest, Jonathan Boone, the host of the How to Fail podcast, where success stories are told through the lens of failure. Jonathan is a strategic operations leader with a rich blend of experience in technology, finance, education. He holds degrees from Wiley College, Grand Canyon University, Purdue University, and he has been recognized for his leadership at top companies like Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, and WageWorks. In today's episode, we dive deep into failing forward. I love that phrase, and how to turn setbacks into stepping stones. Jonathan shares his personal failures and the lessons that he has learned, offering practical advice to help you navigate your own journey. So, whether you are an aspiring entrepreneur, battling imposter syndrome, or seeking motivation to keep going, this episode is packed with insight you do not want to miss. So, get ready to embrace failure with a whole new light. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that review button if you enjoy the episode. So with that said, my friends, welcome Jonathan Boone. What's up, man?
I gotta tell you, man, that I don't know who that guy is, but he sounds impressive.
That's you. That's you. You better flex. You better flex, bro. No, I'm super excited to have you, man. And we were talking right before we hit record.
Mm-hmm.
It's not often that I get to have Black men that are so eloquently spoken and well versed in this type of things that are on a platform, right? That because like I think we see it in our communities, right? But I'm like, man, I wish that we had people that were able to spread this knowledge
Yeah.
to millions of people around the world because this is some good stuff. And so that's kind of like where I want to start for you. I want you to start like by telling us a little bit about your journey going studying criminal history, Wiley College, become a strategic operations leader. Like how did you make that transition as a Black man? Was it harder or was it a little bit easy for you, or was that more motivation for you?
You know what's interesting is, so I come from Gary, Indiana, which is it's a very, when I was in that area, it's a very crime riddled and impoverished city. It still very much is. It's not as bad as it was in the 90s, but I was fortunate enough to have people around me who at the time were molding me. And I didn't realize that that was the case of what was going on. So I had people who had made it out of the city, like uncles and aunts or teachers. My principal lived next door for most of my life. So that was a very
so you had to make it to school on time,
right? Exactly. So I have my grandparents directly across the street. I have my principal right next door. So like it's like triangle of like punishment and growth all around me. So it was a very interesting thing. So I think for me, I think I was recognized early by teachers and by mentors, and I think that they saw something in me that I could be something or that I could make it out. And they pushed me and they pulled me, and I didn't necessarily always understand the tough love or the reason why I wasn't being allowed to, play in the streets or be out late or do, things that other people were doing that seemed fun at the time, do hood rat things with my friends, like the internet says. But as I grew older, I realized that these people realized I had the opportunity to do something that, unfortunately, a lot of people in our area didn't always have the opportunity to do. Because of past traumas or, family hindrances. So for me, when I went off to college, I remember very much my mom and my dad took me down to college. They drove me 18 hours down to Texas. And everything I owned was in a small Rubbermaid tub. I remember when they dropped me off, they said, "Hey, you got to make this work because we cannot afford to come and pick you up." And I was like, okay, well, I guess that's, that's the push. Yeah. So I remember I went to school. They got me everything that they could get. But, I was, my dorm room was probably less prepared than most other ones. About a month later, my aunt came from Denver and she filled it up for me. And then I had some people, one of the people that I talk about in my last episode of my podcast, Lonnie Banks, he was a Black man who had graduated from the school. He was a city official in the city of Dallas, in a city called Garland. And for no reason at all, I was elected freshman class president at Wiley College. So I was, fish out of water.
Okay, flex.
Right? So fish out of water down south. around a whole bunch of people I didn't know, and they elected me to be freshman class president. Cool. So for the first convocation to be sworn in, you have to have this purple tie, white shirt. I didn't have that stuff. I couldn't afford to go and get it. I couldn't buy it. And I remember this gentleman, Lonnie, was talking to me. He was like, "Oh, are you all ready for the convocation?" And I just was having a conversation with him like, "Yeah, I'm ready for it. I got to figure out how to find a white shirt and a purple tie." And he was like, "Well, there's a Walmart, and then it's a small town. It's like there's a J.C. Penney and this." And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't really have a car, and I don't really have any money." I was like, "But I'll figure it out, before the thing." He's like, "Okay, no problem." And then I remember a few hours later, he's like, "Hey, do you want to take a ride with me?" And I was like, "Sure." It's my first week of college. I'm like, "This is a little fun now. Why not?" And he took me to the mall, and he bought me white shirts, polo shirts, like Ralph Lauren stuff that I'd never owned before. The purple tie that I needed, some shoes, and he just bought it. Like he didn't say, "Hey, I'm finna take you out and buy you this stuff." It was like he did it in a way that was like so kind. It was just like, and he was like, "I see something in you, and if you ever get the chance to do this for someone, do it for them." And that was it. It wasn't you owe me or I'm gonna be watching you. It was just like,
right.
And he just did this, and it was such a beautiful thing for me, and one of those things that really I think helped define the type of man I wanted to be as I grew up. I wanted to be able to have that same type of kindness towards people, and at times I've gone too far left. I remember I was listening to your episode on people pleasing, and I sometimes I've fallen victim to that because I want to be and uphold that standard. But I think that's definitely one of those things that helped me to transition towards, just collecting the type of characteristics that I wanted to have as a Black man in society.
Right. And I'm glad you said that, because one of the questions that I was going to ask you is if there was a pivotal moment that you can think of that kind of set the tone for who you are today. And it sounds like that was probably one of the biggest pivotal moments that helped you navigate towards what you do today, right?
Yep, definitely. I definitely, that one was one. I remember one of my earliest memories. I remember I was like 6, and my granddad is a heavy influence on my life as well. And he's still alive. He's 90 years old. He's a DJ. He is the youngest person I know. Trust me.
A 90-year-old DJ?
Amazing.
I'm going to that party. Because he's playing some good songs.
He knows every song, right? Exactly. So my granddad introduced me to Soulja Boy when he first came out. I was like, he was like 75.
No, he did not.
I swear.
That's hilarious.
That's
fantastic.
I remember I was 6 years old, and I went to daycare, and he was picking me up from school, and I guess one of the kids had stolen a ruler or something. And he asked me had I taken it. And I was like, "No, Granddad, I didn't take the ruler." But the teacher was adamant that I had stolen this ruler. And I remember when I got home, this was a different time. So, he gave me a whooping, a spanking, because that's what you did back then.
Yeah.
In the 80s. I just remember being so shocked that I was like getting this punishment that I didn't deserve. And the very next day, at preschool, the teacher went to my granddad and said, "Hey, we found that ruler. He didn't take it. I'm sorry for that." And this, like I said, this is one of those things that I remember briskly, because it just doesn't happen in Black homes often, unfortunately.
Yeah.
My granddad at that age, and I can only assume that he was probably 65 at the time, just doing a rough math estimate, he sat me down. He apologized profusely as a grown-up, apologizing to a child and saying, "I am so sorry that I didn't believe you. I want you to know your voice is important." And he told me, "I will always have your back, and I will do better research for anything else that ever happens." And he kept that word to me even through today. So I remember being a man meant that when you made a mistake, you apologized. It didn't matter if it was...
You own up to it. You take accountability.
Exactly, take accountability. So this was a man who had been through civil rights. My great-granddad was a sharecropper. Like these are people like very close to slavery. My granddad died when he was, my great granddad died when he was 100, so he was born in 1899. Wow. So, just right off the back of slavery. And my grandfather was raised in that household. So for him to sit me down as a child and take accountability for making a mistake, it was a really, really big defining lesson for me. When Lonnie did that thing for me in college, that was a really big defining moment for me as well. And then I remember when I was a little bit older, I had graduated from college and went out to Denver, where I was living at the time. I had the opportunity to bring my dad from Gary out to Denver to my first place I had bought. I remember it was 600 square feet, 1-bedroom condo, $30,000. I was like, oh man, this is the place. This is my home. I had the opportunity for my dad to come out, and he had the opportunity to see the fruits of his labor materialize. And I just remember him being like, really, it's a weird thing when you're young, those things that you don't understand when you're older, but he just like had such reverence for being able to see me succeed. And I remember that meaning a lot to me as well. So I think those three things are definitely really big points for me that help me to.
It's really cool that you said that, because sometimes people ask me what keeps me going, like what is the type of thing that drives me. And of course, like the normal ambition and the need for, or not the need, but just like I want success. I want this to all mean something.
Right.
But one of the things that keeps me going is kind of something that you were just alluding to just now. I would love for my mom, my dad, my family to be able to one day look at me and be like, they're proud of me now, but just be like, that's why, that's the fruits of our labor right there. To be able to, say to my mom, hey mom, you don't have to work another day in your life. You don't have to do anything else. I got you. I can say to my sister, Kay, you don't have to do anything else for the rest of your life. I got you.
Yep.
Dad, I got you. Like, to be able to do that, that's what keeps me going. I want to be able to look them in the face and be like, Ma, I got you.
Yeah.
That's what keeps me going.
Life is I think as we get older, we start to realize like life is such an experiment, right? If you look at it as the people who pour into us and the people who take the time to pour life into us when they don't have to, it's such an experiment for them to do that. It's such an experiment for people to dedicate their time to you or their money or their emotions, because they don't know how that's going to work out, right? You put all this time and effort into somebody and, they end up doing the wrong thing. They go to jail, and then that's wasted. Yeah. Is that time wasted? Is that effort wasted? Or, did you do the right thing because you poured into them in that way? So when people have the opportunity to see their experiments come to fruition, as a father, I know I look at my kids now and I'm like, I want to make sure that they don't I try to remove the barriers that I had growing up so that one day I can hopefully have that same reverence that my dad was able to have for me, when he saw me at a point of adulthood, I would say.
Yeah. And it's cool because all of this led into the mindset that you have today, which I think is great. You have embraced a term that is fairly new to me, but I think it's fascinating. And that phrase is failing forward.
Yeah.
Failing forward. You host a podcast called the How to Fail podcast. And it's really interesting to see how, these early life experiences led to this mindset. So if you don't mind, can you define what failing forward means and why it's an important concept for both personal growth and professional growth?
Definitely. So I think that there is, let's call it a triple plane, right? So I think on one point, you're trying to balance gratefulness, right? For being grateful for the things that you have and where you are at any point, embracing that moment. And then I think secondarily, you have failure, right? So I think that's probably on the opposite side of gratefulness, right? And then right there in the middle, there's that need to want more for yourself, but there's a fear, right? And then there's also tied to that fear, a point of complacency, right? So I think for me, and I always try to talk from a point of personal experience because, I feel like that's the person that I know most. That's the person that I spent the most time with.
Sure.
I went through, if we just do a fast forward, when I graduated from college, I was, 22. I went to Denver. By the time I was 23, I was, making 85 grand a year. I didn't have any debt. I didn't have any kids. I didn't have, teenage pregnancy. I never had any really terrible habits. So, I was kind of like, if if you look at the way that society defines success, or let's say high value men. I'm 6'7". I try to keep
You're
myself kind of
six
okay.
foot
I'm a
seven.
tall guy, yeah. So I'm 6'7".
6'7". So I'm not dunking over you, is what I'm hearing.
Right? No, hopefully not. So so going out into the world, I had what most people in society for a black male would consider to be success at the age of 23. And that was nice. It was nice to feel that and to feel that embrace. And what happened was I stopped taking risk, and I stopped pushing myself. And I remember I had a mentor in New Orleans, and he told me, John, he always used to say, he said, don't believe your own commercial. He used to tell me that all the time. And I never really understood what it was until we sat down one day, and he took me down and he explained it. He said, when you put a commercial together, you put all the best stuff in there. You know what I'm saying? Like, you say all the best things about yourself. They show you in the right angle.
Or you'll like spin it in a way that's like,
the lighting is flawless, chef's kiss, right?
Right.
And then at the end of the commercial, at the very bottom, there's that little bit of fine print, like, it might cause you to die tomorrow. It's there. So if you just believe the good points of the commercial, but you don't take what he would call intrinsic inventory of yourself, what you can do is you can end up being in that place of complacency. And that's kind of where I ended up. I kind of got caught up in that whole, Kevin Samuels wave and all of that good stuff. So like, you start to feel
right.
I am the prize. I should be.
Right.
I should be glorified. Right. And what you have to realize, and what I had to realize was, like, I was failing in a lot of ways. Like, I was failing my partners. I was failing at being all that I could be. So all those people who had experimented on me and had saw that experiment come to fruition through my teens and my 20s, by the time I got to my 30s, like, I don't think that they were proud or would have been proud of that experiment, or to see what I was becoming with all that I had been given or all that I had experienced at the time. So I had to really take, over the last 5 years, I had to really take that honest inventory of myself and say, okay, these are your flaws. These are the things that you hide from people when you put yourself out there. These are the things that aren't on your LinkedIn profile. These are the things that aren't on your dating profile. And these are the things that you, if you challenge yourself to work on these things, if you're transparent with yourself and working on these things, you can likely reach another level. And even if you don't reach another level, which is another level of understanding, you can help people to maybe make it to the level that you're on and have a better understanding of themselves within our community. So for me, failure and failing forward means that you embrace the lessons that come along with the things that are hard. And even though those things hurt, and even though those things can be embarrassing, if we embrace those failures, a lot of times we have the opportunity to take that and use it as fuel for the next success, right? And even if, and if you can make it to a point where you understand that even if you don't learn from the failure, if you teach how you fail to someone else, maybe they can succeed off of your efforts and not have to go through that failure that you experienced.
Right. I love that. And you had mentioned how you were reluctant to take risks, right? Because you I guess you felt like you were in a good spot, probably farther along than what society would say a man or person would be, let alone a black man, right?
Yep.
How much do you, like, with as uncertain as the world is today, it's understandable why sometimes people don't take risks, right? So how do people find that balance between risking, like, doing something and risking failure in a way, and sticking with what they know, I guess, in a way works, with so much uncertainty? How can they find that balance?
I think you have to find safe spaces. So I think that's another thing that I'm really big on in terms of my community. Our community is not, unfortunately for society as a whole, there's not a lot of safe spaces for Black men, right?
That's correct.
I think that the problem and why we don't have safe spaces is because we were never taught to create safe spaces for ourselves. I applaud, my sisters. They have a sister circle. Like they yes and go sis and all of that good stuff, and that's not
Yes.
necessarily the 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 habits that we have as Black men for each other. I think Black men are really not tearing each other down. I think we don't do that, but I think that we also don't create these safe spaces for us to be vulnerable in. So I think that that's what I'm trying to do.
That's right. Yes.
So I try to encourage people who want to take risk to find their safe spaces, regardless of who they are. If you have a grounded, safe space that you can operate in, then even if you take a risk or you fail, you're going to land back in that circle of safety. It can be one person, it can be a community, it can be faith, it can be whatever your thing is that's your safe space for you. You have to create that for yourself. And if you create the safe space for yourself and operate from that as a center, then it gives you the opportunity to go out and maybe take a risk or two. And the thing about risk is they are risks. You might fail. You might have 100 failures before you have that thing that elevates you to where you want to be. And, that's tough to deal with.
Right.
Because people will see your failures.
Right. That's really hard.
And they'll poke at
you. Brought up a very good point. You brought up a very good point about safe spaces, especially for Black men. And it's not, and like you said, it's not like we're tearing each other down, because we're not. But the idea of vulnerability, being vulnerable, saying it, being able to say to my bro, man, I'm feeling bad today, bro.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why. Like, to say that in a vulnerable way, or to even cry, to just cry, right. And just let it out in front of another man. Like, the idea of that is like, no, I'm not gonna cry in front of my boy. Like, right. I'm not gonna do that.
Right.
And it's interesting that you said that, because I think, going back to what you were talking about when I think it was you're saying was your grandfather that was apologizing to you, right? Like, that is a vulnerable moment for him.
Yeah.
Because he didn't have to do that.
He didn't have to do it. Right.
He could have been like, I'm just gonna teach him. He needs to learn anyway.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
How can we help each other with that? Like, how can we help provide a better safe space for each other?
Yeah, I think that it's that same thing, right? So I think that you have to find that safe space within yourself first, and then you have to open up that space to others that are in your community, whatever your community is. What I've found and what I've been absolutely super proud of is, whenever I've gone and been vulnerable with like a close friend of mine, like a male guy, they've always embraced me, and they've always given me exactly what it was that I needed in that moment. Because we are, playing on the playground and being rough with each other, and, making hard fouls on the basketball court, and watching TV and being ingested in this machismo mentality from an early age. I talked last week about, we put dolls in girls' hands before they can talk, right? So they learn to nurture and care for things, maybe sometimes to a detriment. But for men, we put guns and balls, and then you gotta win,
like army men, and
right. There's only one winner. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So for us, it becomes harder for us to become nurturers in the way that women naturally have the opportunity to do so. So, but what I've noticed is, for men, whenever we have the opportunity to, or for me personally, whenever I open up to my male friends, even ones that I think are like, oh my God, they're going to judge me, they're going to say something crazy, they're going to call me soft, they always give me exactly what I want, an emotional response. So it's like, we know how to do it because more than likely of the people that we have in our lives, whether it's our moms or it's our wives or our girlfriends or our partners or whatever it is, we know how to be nurturing and vulnerable and emotionally intelligent. We just need to be given the opportunity to do so more often. So if you have a friend that that's your dog, and you're going through something, say something to him. You will oftentimes be shocked at how they are
Mm-hmm.
readily able to give you what it is that you need in terms of emotional or mental support.
Right, right. Just let the record show. If you and I are playing basketball, I'm like you were talking about hard fouls. I'm gonna have to hard foul you. You're 6'7". I'm 5'10" and a half. I
Look,
don't have a choice.
I,
Like if you're backing up and like I'm like I don't have a choice, bro. I got a hard foul. You
you
got
got
to
to use
earn
the
that
speed.
bucket. You
You
know.
got to use the speed. That's the thing. The
Yeah,
maneuverability.
I got quick hands. I got quick hands, but the minute that you decide that the game is over, you just bully your way in there. Like
Yeah,
I'm not stopping
right
you, bro.
there you
I'm gonna
go.
have to hard foul. What is a common misconception that you think people have about failure?
I think that the common misconception about failure is that it is contagious, or that it is
Mm,
something that um, is always, that is everlasting. Like, oh, I failed at this, I'm going to fail at the next thing.
right.
But the reality of the situation is, anything that you love, anything that you like, anything that you think is
Hmm.
interesting was made off the back of
Yeah.
a failure. Period. Point blank, period.
Yeah.
There's nothing that exists that there weren't several failures before it existed in order for it to get to you
Hmm.
in the way that you enjoy it today. There were so many
Right.
Apple products that failed before they were able to get you that iPhone.
Yeah.
If you are, unfortunately, an Apple user, I'm smart, so I use an Android, of course. But those people.
Wow, you're just attacking me
I'm
left and
shooting,
right
right?
today.
I'm just
I'm talking to you on my MacBook right now. I got my Apple Watch over here, my iPhone over here. You're just attacking me left
Hey,
and right. Is it
you
because
gotta
I
have
told you I'm not an Eagles
hey,
fan
hey,
and you're an Eagles fan? Is that why?
Eagles fan. I'm talking to a Cowboys fan, so I gotta give it to you a little bit. But I think that's the thing, is like, we have to realize that, like,
Yeah.
anything that exists was failed before it got to us in the point in which we like it.
Right.
And I think if it's hard. Like, a lot of times we talk about things, even when we talk about them, we talk about them in a microwave way. Like, oh yeah, if you do this and you do that, in 2 minutes it'll be ready and it's good to go. But the reality is, it
Right.
takes hard work to get to the mental point of understanding that, okay, I failed at this, but just because I failed at this doesn't mean I can't succeed at it. Let's take
Right.
another approach at it. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Damn, even though you attacking me, bro, like, man, I don't know. You know what? This interview's it's done. It's over. It's done. I'm kidding.
Pull the plug.
I'm kidding. So like I know that you have a lot of background in the corporate world,
Yeah.
in that type of environment. I know a lot of people that listen to this podcast do work in that type of world, right? And a lot of times they feel like a number as opposed to a
Yeah.
name and all of that.
Yep.
Um, and so failure sometimes might hit them a little bit harder because they feel as though they're in a lot less control and they have to prove themselves every step of the way. And
Yeah.
the minute that they're not successful in something, it's like, oh, well, that's my job, or I'm going to get a demerit, or I'm not going to get that raise, whatever it may be. So how do you handle the emotional aftermath of a significant quote failure? And what advice would you give to people that are struggling with that?
I think what you have to do is you have to figure out what tools work for you in terms of
Mm.
a reset, right? I think that there always has to
Mm-hmm.
be a reset when you go through a failure. Now, I think reset can be misleading because it's not like you remove the memory of what happened previously or you forget it. I remember just in an interpersonal relationship, having a relationship that I wanted to start over. And we were like, okay, we are new people. Let's go at this and try to reintroduce ourselves to each other and see if we can make this work this time. And I think that that's a really, really wonderful idea. But the reality of the situation is, you are still the person that you were before. She is still the person who she was before. We are these people who hurt each other. And by just acting like that doesn't exist, it kind of sets you up for failure. And it's the same thing when you have those emotional failures at work or in corporate America. I recently was told, I just took a new position at a new company, and somebody that encourages me told me, be smart, play the game, which is 100% an excellent focusing. It's the type of thing that works for me when somebody tells me
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. That's the type of thing that encourages me to go out and do it. But when you're in a corporate environment, it can be sometimes hard to be smart and play the game because you're just trying to exist, right? So what I say is when you're in corporate America, you have to, on day one, find allies. Find the people who you can always tell when people are drawn to you or find you interesting or look at you in a certain way, like, oh, I wonder why this person got hired. Embrace those people. Those are the people who are going to be your allies. Those are going to be the people who encourage you in the lunchroom. Those are going to be the people who join your amen corner when you send out your emails and in meetings and those types of things. So it's the same thing. You know, when we're in corporate America, you have to create community. It's a secret community a lot of times, but you know, you have to find those people who are like-minded in terms of pushing your vision in the company for the company forward. And by doing that, you give yourself the opportunity to, when you do have failures, you have people that you can go to as a sounding board, and they can help you to, you know, construct the next thing that you take a risk on to try to get your career to the next level.
Yeah. What about when it's like a repeated failure? Because I know that sometimes, like even me, sometimes I'll get down on myself because like I'll try something that doesn't work. I'm like, okay, fine, bet. I'll change it up. I'll switch it up. Fails again. Happens again and again. How does one go about handling repeated failure? How can we maintain motivation and perseverance in moments like that?
Yeah, I think that you just have to, once again, it's I know for me one time, that very first job that I was telling you about, I was trying to get promoted when I was in Denver. And back then you would go through an interview process and they would let you know where you ranked in the interview process internally with other candidates. And I remember I applied for 12 jobs. It was the same job, but 12 different ones came open. So every time we got a new client, we needed a new lead for that client. So we got 12 new clients. I applied to be the lead person for each one. I was already an assistant lead. So that was the natural next progression for me. I was really, really young. And I think that was something that led to me not being selected at the time, because this was before, ageism and those types of things were things that companies, it was before the diversity and inclusion, movement that we had later on. So every time I would interview for all 12 of these jobs, I got the ranking that came back and I would finish second. So it was like second, third, second. And like, let me tell you something. If I'm going to lose, if I'm going to fail, the way that I like to fail, I want it to be a massive disaster, right? If I'm failing by one,
you're like, I'm going out with a bang.
That's the thing. If I'm failing by one, if it's close, that guts me, because I'm like, then at that point you're in your head, right? You're like, dang, if I would have just wore the blue shirt instead of the white shirt, that may have been the one thing that would have got me over. Versus like, oh yeah, you never had a chance, right? When you never have a chance, that feels good. It's like, okay, cool, I'm out of my league. But it's like, oh no, we thought of it. We just decided not to. That's like, oh.
Right. It's like when the Eagles would blow a Super Bowl lead against the Chiefs, something like that, right?
Exactly.
Like something like that.
That hurts so much because we made it there. It hurts so much more, right? Oh, deep wound. That's a deep low blow. But you know what?
Shots fired.
You owe me
Shots
that.
fired.
You owe that. You owe me that from the episode. So I'm giving you that. So I know for me in that instance, like failing and being that close to success, like what was the thing that kept me going? Well, the thing that kept me going was ultimately understanding that there was an end goal, right? So this is the same process that I use now. I get in trouble a lot when I focus on the end goal, right? So if the end goal is to build a pyramid, I will go hardcore towards building the pyramid. And a lot of times I end up in a failure situation because I'm so focused on the end goal. When I break it down and I say, okay, what is it that I need to do? I need to make a foundation. I need to get the building materials. I need to get the blueprint. And I focus on each little step. By the time I look up, I've arrived at my final goal of building the pyramid. When I just focus on like, I got to get this pyramid built. I got 6 months to do it. Oh my gosh, it's such an undertaking. And I'm focused on the end goal. It causes me to, like I said, get in trouble. I cut a lot of corners because I'm trying to get to the end goal versus This is the first
Sure.
step.
Hmm.
This is the second step. This is the third step. This is the, I'm focused on the marriage. I'm not focused on the day to day
Hmm.
relationship. So you have to
Sure.
get to a
Hmm.
place where you break down. When you get in a situation where you're failing over and over and over again, don't focus on the end goal. Focus on what they're looking
Hmm.
for the end goal, right? So if they want you to have,
Hmm.
this type of experience, what certificates can you go out and get that are free? Most of the time, you can go out and get things to put in your resume and your portfolio in a day that you didn't know were out there that you already have
Yeah.
knowledge base on, and they're not usually very expensive.
Hmm.
So you have to stack the deck in your favor. Once you start seeing yourself get into situations where you are having repeated failures. So at that point, I would say,
Yeah.
don't focus on the end goal. Let's focus on the destination and what things we can do to help us along the way.
Right. Right. Would you give the same advice to people that I'm going to go into the opposite spectrum here? Like you have the people that are experiencing repeated failure, and then you also have people that are paralyzed by the thought of failure. Would you give similar advice to them?
Yeah, analysis paralysis is a very real thing, and anxiety is a very
Yeah.
real thing as well. What I've found
Hmm.
for me, once again, it's always a personal thing, is I
Yeah.
have people in my life who are so dynamic, and when they do things, they are amazing, amazing. But they
Hmm.
have the fear of going out and putting themselves out there because they think that if they fail publicly, it's going to be a massive blow to them or they won't be able to overcome it, all those
Right.
types of things. But they have the best ideas. And I always tell these people, like, look at yourself and imagine yourself as being a plant, right? You have everything that you need as a plant that exists in society. It can rain on you, the sun exists already, there's already oxygen outside, right? So all the things that you need to
Hmm.
succeed as a plant are already within you, right? Now, if you put yourself, or if someone comes along and they put you in a better environment as a plant, or they water you, or they give you some vitamins or those types of things, then you can be an even better plant. You can grow even bigger and taller, right? You're not giving yourself
Hmm.
the opportunity to be found by the gardener. Like you're just staying in your little
Hmm.
pot, So
Yeah.
if you're
Yeah.
if you look at it in that way of saying like, hey, you don't even know who's ready to embrace you. You don't even know what's out there for you, because you're so paralyzed to even put yourself out there in the garden. Then you're never going to be anywhere but inside your little pot. So you have to.
Hmm.
And once again, it's that thing where it's really easy to say, it's hard to do, but we have to give ourselves the opportunity to take the risk of putting yourself out there. What I tell people all the time is do something that you know is going to fail and see how that feels.
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
If
Wow. Yeah.
you are a terrible singer,
Yeah.
go to a karaoke bar. Everybody's drunk, right?
Yeah.
You can't sing.
Yes.
When you
Yes.
get there, it's going to sound horrible, but there will be people that will boo you and there will be people who cheer you, right? But give yourself
Yeah.
the opportunity to see what it feels like to fail at something that's insignificant to you,
Mm.
right?
Right. Right.
If I go out there and I try to run a mile, I'm going to fail. And I'm like, I'm going to fail.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if I have the opportunity to see what that feels like, and then I can go home and say,
Yeah.
next time I'm going to bring some water. Maybe I'll stretch, and maybe I won't make the mile next time either, but maybe I'll make the quarter mile. If
Right.
I
Right.
keep doing things that put me in position to have a failure I'm comfortable with and I can adjust it, then when I do get ready to run the marathon, right, which is my end goal,
Hmm.
I've now put myself in better position to be able to do that. So, if you have anxiety, give yourself the opportunity to fail at something. Like figure out something that you know you're not good at and do it anyway, and figure out how that feels for
John came here to preach today. And it's Sunday, and he dropping knowledge today. That's what I'm talking about.
you.
I never thought of it that way. I never thought like to go out and do something that you know it's going to
Yeah,
fail. That's insignificant, but just so you can get the feeling of what it's like, and then build upon that
100.
from there, and you kind of build up this resilience within you. And I think that kind of goes into like this next question that I have for you, and that is in regards to the importance of self compassion, right? Because I just did an interview recently where I was talking to a therapist about the importance of self
Yeah.
compassion and giving yourself grace in moments like that. Can you talk about the importance of self compassion when it comes to failure?
Yeah, it's so important. This is one of those things that I'm still learning and working on for myself as well, because it's really,
Yeah, same.
for me, it's really easy for me to get down on myself when I fail, right? Or when
Hmm.
it's not even when I fail. My biggest hurdles in life are when I'm letting down someone who I care about, right? When I'm trying
Oh yeah,
to
yeah.
not, when I'm trying to do something for someone and I just can't do it, that is the thing that really bleeds my heart, right? So, what I've had to do for myself is to look myself in the mirror and say, okay, we all need
Hmm.
grace. We 100% all need
Yes.
that every single day. And if I'm not
Hmm.
willing to give grace to myself, then why would anyone else give me grace as I go about my journey in life? So I'm always trying to make sure that I give myself what I always call it when I talk or when I do, the functions where I'm speaking to people is I call it um, the human element, right? At the end of the day,
Hmm.
you always have to remember that you are a human person and thus you are flawed. So if you know that you're flawed,
Yes.
then you have to be okay with coming into circumstances in which you fail and which flaw
Hmm.
and places where flaws exist. So give yourself the opportunity to have that grace, spend time with yourself, take time for self care for yourself, breathe
Hmm.
deeply, eat terribly sometimes, do those things that you have to do for yourself,
That was me last night.
right?
Yep.
Do those things for yourself that make you feel alive and loved by yourself. You spend that time with yourself and give yourself that grace, and that will help you to do those little resets that we talk about.
Yeah, I love that. This is great, man. Like friends, if you're watching or listening to this right now, and you're like, I really like this guy. He knows what he's talking about. He is the host of the How to Fail podcast, where it's stuff like this all the time, and drops knowledge, experiences that will help you along the way. John, I like honestly, I can't thank you enough, honestly,
Oh, for
for
sure.
dedicating your time in hot ass Phoenix. Like I, it is too dang hot out there. But if you don't mind, as we wrap things up today, can you leave our listeners with one final piece of advice on how to embrace and learn from their failures?
Definitely, 100%. My granddad always says, if you can remove a thorn and replace it with a rose, then you're on the right path. So, for you out there in your own personal lives, in your career life, raising your kids, and you're romantically, where you see a thorn, try to remove the thorn and replace it with a rose. And if you do that, I guarantee you at the end of the day, you will learn from those failures and you will have the opportunity to end up in a beautiful garden.
That's amazing.
So,
That's
yeah,
great, dude. Jonathan Boone, my friends. I'm going to include all of his information in the description of this podcast, including a link to his podcast where you can hear tons more stories and experiences just like this. Jonathan Boone, my friends, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you, even though you're an Eagles fan. Let the record show for everybody that's watching right now. If you're not listening and you're watching this right now, you're probably confused that I was talking trash about the Eagles
okay,
as
Kai.
I wear a Phillies hat.
Hey, Kai. That's
Now
all
let
right.
the record show I'm Philly all day. I am 100%. I will diehard Philly for everything except for football. So I'm a diehard Cowboys
It's a
fan
virus.
in the Philly area.
It's a virus.
So I had to rib just a
I
little
like
bit,
it.
because that's how we roll.
Good deal.
Jonathan, I
Thank
appreciate
you
it,
for
man.
your
Thank you
time,
so much for
sir.
being here again. Like, thank you, and to everybody that's listening or watching right now. For more about John, I'm going to include his information in the description of this podcast. Do me a favor, check it out, because you're probably going to get something good out of that. I
Very
can, I
cool.
can promise you that. So, with that said, my friends, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure you hit that like, subscribe button. I really enjoy your insight here. So like, shoot me a DM, shoot me an email, let me know what you thought of the episode
Here we go.
and all that, my friends. As always, much love, good vibes, and I will talk to you later.
Bible Kai,
See
everybody.
you.